And good evening. I'm meteorologist Angela Buchman. Will join Sean Ash here in a few moments. Just want to make sure that we keep you weather aware. Our news ended a few minutes ago over on Channel 13, but we continue to deal with severe storms. This is the view, and it actually looks better than it did a few minutes ago over downtown Indianapolis when we had very heavy rain, the threat for damaging winds, and the threat for large hail. You can see on live Doppler 13 radar, we have a long line of storms moving across central Indiana. Most of this line is warned for severe thunderstorm warnings and warned for that potential of large hail and damaging wind gusts that may at times reach 60 miles per hour or more. We've had some reports of hail as large as ping pongs. We've also had some pea-sized hail reported out of the Carmel area and some gusty winds as well. We're starting to see those power outages increase, and we'll touch base with Sean in just a moment on the latest power outages, and we'll get you caught up on some of the cameras across central Indiana. But let's get you where we have the warnings now. They do include Marion County. This is one of the strongest part of this line of storms that is moving just south of downtown Indianapolis. So this is your heads up. Mooresville, Greenwood, New Whiteland. This is going to come out of southern Marion County, move into the northern sections of Johnson County, and you are under a severe thunderstorm warning that goes until 7 o'clock this evening. The potential for some damaging winds and large hail, and I can tell you the rain is blinding. It is heavy. It turns the skies from basically light to dark. So if you do have to get out, just be aware that the rain is coming down so hard that the streets are getting flooded temporarily as well. So we've got some major weather issues with this line of storms. Non-severe, but you do have heavy rain in Greencastle, moving into Hendricks County. The severe threat has ended for you, Brownsburg. The tail end of that storm, Avon, is moving into Plainfield and Mooresville right now. And we'll go east of this line. Let's remove the severe thunderstorm warning. And Lawrence, you are now seeing your severe threat end, but heads up Greenfield. This storm line is moving off to the south and east and in your direction, and will eventually move toward the Shelbyville area. So Shelbyville, you've got a little more of a heads up if you want to bring the patio furniture in due to that threat for damaging wind gusts. And as I mentioned, those power outages are starting to increase as well. Just below severe limits, this line moved through Anderson and LaPel. It is now pushing just south of there, headed into Newcastle. It's just south of Mount Pleasant. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning for our eastern viewing area. That's the cell coming just out of Winchester, and that warning will go for Randolph County until 7 o'clock this evening. So we do have numerous severe thunderstorm warnings within this line, and we've been monitoring our threat tracker. So what we look for here are areas of large hail, areas where we may have some damaging wind gusts. Not quite as impressive near the Winchester area. It is moving just south of you with that potential for some damaging winds and some larger hail. And again, just under severe limits in between Anderson and Newcastle. But let's head back to the west where this threat tracker is much stronger. And this is going to be in areas just south of Lawrence, southern sections of Marion County, and in the Plainfield area. So this is the concentration where we're dealing with the heaviest rain, that threat for the largest hail and the strongest winds. You've got just a couple of minutes, Mooresville, Greenwood, New Whiteland, eventually into Franklin and Shelbyville. You've got a little extra time as these storms are tracking now off to the southeast, anywhere between 30 and 40 miles per hour. We have had several reports of hail. Big thank you to our viewers that always take the time to safely get pictures and video. We've had out of the Speedway area, out of the Carmel area. You can always send those to us at WTHR.com. You can download them on the mobile app if you've got that as well. We also use social media, so several ways to get those pictures and video to us as long as you're doing it in a safe way. In terms of the western part of the state, that warning was allowed to expire or cancel just ahead of schedule. So by far our strongest area is moving just south of downtown Indianapolis for the heavy rain. In terms of lightning, we didn't hear much thunder downtown. We did hear the rain. It was really, really loud on top of the building here at Channel 13. Greencastle to just south of downtown Indianapolis to about Newcastle to just south of Winchester. So with this large view, you can see where this line is going to go next. It'll be into Richmond. It'll be into Greenwood, heads up eventually into Greensburg, Columbus, Bloomington. We do think, Sean, this line is going to hold together as it moves from north to south. I know you've been monitoring the cameras and you've been monitoring the power outages. We had about 2,000 customers, Duke Energy customers in Westfield that got hit pretty hard, but now you're starting to see those increase in Marion County.
Yeah, and you know, so when we started our show this evening, we had about roughly 2,000 left over in Marion County from yesterday's storm. And let's just do a refresh here. In Marion County, we're over 5,000 now. So, and we still have some storm to go through on the southern portion of Marion County. And speaking of, this is from Jimmy. This is a view from Southport, and we're starting to get more of what we call a shelf cloud. And that typically is on the leading edge of the rain-cooled air that's rushing out of the storm. And what a storm it is. We talked about the wind potential, but also just the heavy rain component with what's going on. So you can easily tell the heavy rain axis is now south of downtown. No more than 15 minutes ago, you couldn't even see the skyline from our camera outside the studios here. This is the vantage point from atop Salesforce. But let me get you into the teeth of this storm in Marion County. This is Raymond Street there in Southeastern. And even this camera has changed dramatically since we just started our coverage here on the live stream. And then this is I-465 at 70 on the east side. So I've had some folks south of 70 say, are we going to get this? That's one in particular, Angela from Mooresville.
Oh, yes.
Everybody's wanting some rain. I get it. And I said, you're not missing this one. There's a pretty good chance that this is hanging together for southern Marion County and a good portion of Johnson County here. And it's warned, by the way, from west to east. And we should add that once you get north of this axis, even though the watch goes until midnight, the severe threat's over now for Frankfort and Elwood. Let me pop up our map here real quickly. This is our power outage map. So you mentioned Westfield. Of the Duke Energy customers, that's been pretty much the epicenter. They're over 2,000 there from one of the initial storms that started this whole thing.
Well, let's get back to live Doppler 13 radar, and we'll get back to Sean here in a few minutes. This is kind of a large view. We had one cell, and it was interesting to watch these develop earlier this afternoon, that developed in the eastern sections of Illinois, and boy, it just kind of took over from there. Very similar to what we had yesterday in terms of the wind threat. Most of these storms have contained hail. I don't know that we had as much hail reported yesterday with the storms, more of a wind and heavy rain event, but we are getting several reports of large hail with a good part of the storm activity that's moving through the area now. This line we anticipate, as Sean mentioned, to hold together until it clears our viewing area, and that's probably still going to take a couple of hours. I don't think that severe threat completely ends until 9 or 10 o'clock. We should start to see the severe thunderstorm watch, the counties north of this axis, be dropped as we go through the evening hours. And once this axis clears your severe threat will be over. But until then, boy, it's going to be a busy early evening for us. We'll go west to east along this line from just east of the Danville, Illinois area. Non-severe here. But boy, you've got a big storm over you, Greencastle. And I would treat all of these storms as if they could produce damaging winds and large hail. Remember, we're all under still a severe thunderstorm watch technically until midnight. The storm near and just south of Greencastle, Cloverdale, you're next. It will continue to push south along this line. And then Sean mentioned Mooresville, getting questions on if you're going to get some much needed rain. Yes, but unfortunately that's going to come with a wind and a hail threat this evening. Right now, the cluster extends basically just north of I-70 from Greencastle to Avon and Plainfield, but starting to race south. So heads up Mooresville. You've got just a few minutes before that is into your area. And then we'll go east. This is southern Marion County. And actually, let's go street level since we're here. And you can see some of the heaviest rain right now is near the Southport area, just pushing south of Beech Grove and just minutes away from Greenwood. Greenwood, I'm sure the skies are dark as you can see what's coming your way. But the heavy rain right now over the Southport area and then over into New Pal and Acton. So southern sections of Marion County pushing just south of the 465 loop. Let's widen this back out. And the severe thunderstorm warning, as I mentioned, goes until 7 o'clock. We've got one for the eastern part of the state. If it's still in effect, that will go until 7:15. But we want you to treat this entire line as if the storms could reach severe potential, because they can with little or no warning. We do have the severe thunderstorm warning for Mooresville, Brooklyn, New Whiteland, Greenwood over towards Sugar Creek until 7 o'clock. Right now, we showed you Southport street level, Plainfield, Clayton getting hit hard with the heavy rain and lightning. And then east of there, just southeast of Indianapolis around New Pal and Acton, this extends east into the Greenfield area. After this, we start to see this cluster of storms move south. So let's give you a heads up. Brooklyn, Bargersville, Needham, Franklin, eventually Shelbyville, Morristown over toward Carthage into Knightstown. We do expect this entire cluster of storms to move south. And actually, Future Track 13, we were highlighting that during our early evening news from 5 to 6:30, and it was pretty accurate in terms of the timeline. And what it showed was this line moving from north to south and basically clearing our area by about 9 o'clock. Technically under the severe thunderstorm watch until midnight. I don't anticipate we will be under that watch that long. New severe thunderstorm warning just coming in based on the cell that we're keeping an eye on right over New Pal, really starting to strengthen. So Morristown, you are now under a severe thunderstorm warning. So this is going to include the northern sections of Shelby County. That warning goes until 7:30 this evening. So our new severe thunderstorm warning in effect for northern Shelby County until 7:30 this evening. This extends back west into the southeastern sections of Marion County as well. So that's a new warning just in from the National Weather Service in Indianapolis. We go east, and there is that one warning remaining for Randolph County until 7 o'clock this evening. Non-severe, basically in between Winchester and what you see in Greenfield, but the Newcastle area, heads up, you do have some rain and storms in your area. Moving off to the southeast, will eventually head toward Connorsville, Liberty, and Richmond, and at this point just below severe limits. But we've had several reports of large hail as large as ping pong ball size, and lots of smaller hail reported. In fact, when I stepped out of the studio just after our 6 o'clock ended, we had the big downpour over downtown, and we had what appeared to be pea-sized hail. Jenny took a picture from inside inside the station, and we kind of warned everybody, if you can let this storm pass and give yourself a few minutes, not only are you going to be drier getting to your car from inside the studio, but it's going to give a little time for the heavy rain that has piled up on the roads. Might be a little safer to get home this evening. And that is going to be a big concern in addition to the threat of damaging winds and that large hail threat. We saw it come down basically Crawfordsville Road on the west side, and the intersection quickly got flooded just because the rain comes down so heavy in such a short amount of time, Sean.
Yep, absolutely here. So the heaviest over for Indy right now. I want to go into live Doppler 13 radar here a little bit, and starting to pick up on some wind spikes, and we've noticed that. Couple of things I'll point out to you. So this is what we call the shear swath, and so that picks up on the highest wind where it's traveled, and you can see it's been bunched up over Marion County and bunched up over Hendricks County, in addition to the pockets of high wind that we had over Hamilton County, and then also the hail swath. And this goes to what you were saying. So one of the areas that you were talking about, Southport, and I got a camera, I popped one up there. This one is not Southport, this one is. You can see where, so in addition to the wind and the hail, yeah, we're going to be dealing with rain rates of 1 inch to 2 inches per hour. And so it will not take much at all to cause street flooding, and we've seen that as well. I do want to show you a couple other things here too. You mentioned that new severe thunderstorm warning. we're getting some shades in here around New Pal, where there's going to be 50, 60 mile per hour wind potential, and our shear detector is picking up on that. It doesn't mean this entire storm line will have 60 mile per hour wind, but within it at various times, it will here. And this goes back west, so you can see the severe thunderstorm warning includes Clayton and Plainfield, and Mooresville now under the severe thunderstorm warning. So the heavy rain basically on a west to east axis from Stilesville, Plainfield, the southern portion of Marion County now. So all of 465 on the south side, Southport getting into Greenwood, and then this goes and extends eastward, almost out toward the entire length of I-70. So if you're south of this line, you are still in play for severe thunderstorm warnings. If you're north of it, the severe weather show, for the most part, is going to be done. The atmosphere, all this energy in the atmosphere is being used up as we speak. So this is just part of this active pattern, Angela, that we're going to have here first part of the week before we settle things down later in the week here. In between now and then, we're still going to have more of these clusters of storms to contend with, each of which could have severe weather potential.
Yes, and if you're a Monday through Friday worker, you're going to be very happy to see the Friday night and Saturday forecast, because we're going to clear it out. Humidity levels are going to drop, but between now and then, we not only are dealing with the severe threat, but we had another smoky day in central Indiana where our air quality suffered because of the smoke in Canada. And hopefully you watched the early evening news, because we had a really good report coming out of Canada, and one of the firefighters on the front lines in Canada kind of answered one of the questions that I had every time we get the smoke back here. Well, aren't they fighting the fires? Well, basically they're too big and or in too remote of an area for them really to fight. So a lot of them just have to burn. So if you're wondering, like I was, well, why are we still dealing with this? Why aren't they fighting them? Why aren't they putting them out? They are so large that they really can't be fought. They just unfortunately have to burn themselves out. So smoke has been an issue for us the last couple of days. We anticipate more haze and smoke tomorrow. So if you do suffer from upper respiratory problems, please take it easy, and remember your pets when we're dealing with the smoke that thick that you can see it and smell it and feel it. Your pets are feeling the same thing. I mentioned Future Track 13, that this is what we were kind of showing folks during our 5 to 6:30 newscast, and timing pretty good, off by maybe 15-20 minutes in terms of position, but this was the forecast position basically at this time, and it's pretty close. What it shows is the line moving south and east between now and 9 o'clock. So if you're wondering if you're south and east of Indianapolis and you haven't had the storms yet, are they going to hold together? All indications are they are. And over the next 2 hours, we're going to see this line move from just south of Indianapolis into Seymour, North Vernon, Greensburg before it clears the state and we completely see our severe threat come to an end. So just be mindful, stay with us, stay weather aware. This cluster of severe storms is expected to be with us at least through 8-9 o'clock tonight before we start to see it move out and our severe threat come to an end. If you are north and west, your severe threat has already ended. Lafayette, Marion, Kokomo, Tipton, Fishers, Carmel, Westfield. But unfortunately, some of you, because of those wind spikes that Sean pointed out, are dealing with power outages. And we're also still dealing with not only the wind threat, but the hail threat as well. So let's get you caught up on where we have the severe storms right now. Non's just below severe limits, but I'm going to give you a heads up on this western extent. An intensifying storm pushing just south of Coatesville. So this is going to move in between Cloverdale and Monrovia. It's basically getting ready to cross I-70 west of Indianapolis, coming out of Hendricks and Putnam counties and moving south. So heads up Monrovia, Mooresville, Cloverdale. You have just a few minutes. Cloverdale, I actually think you miss out on the strongest part of this storm, as it's going to be just to your east. And then down the road from there, Brooklyn, Adams, Martinsville, the Paragon area over toward Gosport. Eventually this line is going to work its way south and southeast. Now into the heart of the cluster of severe storms, where we do have that severe thunderstorm warning continuing for southern Marion County, northern Johnson until 7 p.m. Greenwood, we gave you a bit of a heads up. It's basically over you now. So it will go into Bargersville, Needham, New Whiteland next, as right now it's over Greenwood and Sugar Creek and approaching the Morristown area coming out of Greenfield. Obviously very heavy rain. We do have the lightning with it, the potential for damaging wind gusts and that potential for some large hail. And we did have a fair amount of hail reports coming out of these cells. And so we've been monitoring. Sean showed you basically our shear tracker, which monitors those wind spikes, but also the hail tracker as well. And we kind of put it all in one in this threat tracker, where really it's picking up on that large hail threat from near Southport and Greenwood to Sugar Creek to Greenfield. And in advance of this line is where we expect to have some of those damaging wind gusts. So you're probably seeing the skies darken Bargersville, Needham, over towards Shelbyville. And yes, what you see approaching is coming in, and it's coming in with heavy rain, lots of lightning, perhaps 60-mile-per-hour winds, and perhaps severe hail. And that's going to be anything the size of a quarter or larger, as our threat tracker is still picking up on that for central Indiana. Eventually, we'll see this move into the Shelbyville area, so it's going to move south along I-74, Interstate 65, Highway 31, and then 69 there to the south and west. We do have heavy rain Greenfield over toward Knightstown into the Spiceland area, so we're east along I-70 as this line is crossing I-70 to the east as well. We will go east. We still have the severe thunderstorm warning. Actually, that one has expired, but they continued it into the western sections of Ohio as the storm is coming out of the Lynn area and Fountain City. So this is just north of Richmond. There's I-70 and Highway 40. Eventually, this line of storms will cross those two main roadways. And best advice, if you're in the area where these storms are still coming, and that's going to be south of Indianapolis, if you can let these go by and maybe delay your errands or delay being in the car. Not a bad idea. There was a pretty impressive show from the camera that Sean showed us on the south side. The intersections just get completely inundated with water because the rain is coming down that fast and that heavy. And that is one threat in addition to the wind and the hail threats at this hour. But a very active live Doppler 13 radar. We do have the severe thunderstorm warning in effect for southern Marion, northern Johnson until 7 p.m. And we did have that new warning. Just kind of hard to see highlighted here because we have so much, we have so much orange and red on the radar, but it's for this cell headed into Morristown, and so that includes northern Shelby County until 7:30. And it's, again, just because the rain is so intense and that hail threat and the wind threat with the radar echoes, it's just kind of hard to see the outline. But it's that outline from basically New Pal over toward Morristown, 7:30, and then Sugar Creek to Needham to New Whiteland and Greenwood. Your warning goes until 7 o'clock this evening. Any new power outages? With the hail or the wind swath that you showed, I wouldn't be surprised to see some come out of Hendricks County.
Yes, and I've been waiting to get an update on that in what you were just talking about for Johnson County. So this is, you're looking at 65 there at County Line Road there near Greenwood. So in the thick of it, not a whole lot with Duke Energy and Hendricks right now. Down to 1,000, say down to 1,000 in Westfield. And then AES is still, last check, over 7,500. And so there's a couple of pockets here. One, again, on the northern side of Marion County. So there's a cluster up near Nora. There's also a cluster over near Speedway, which wasn't a surprise based on the camera that Angela was showing during the 6 o'clock news. I mean, there was just wind-driven rain. And then there's another cluster that's near Garfield Park and also near Warren Park. So, boy, and this has been one heck of a season here of late for Marion County. Mm-hmm. Of course, we all know about the last go-around, how long that power was out. So here's another vantage point, and it's interesting to kind of, so this is 65 at Edgewood. You can kind of see that where the heavy rain axis is starting to drift to the southeast just a bit. Still, south of the line, there's still, and I just checked, there is all kinds of energy out of the atmosphere. It's that hasn't been used up south of this line. So the expectation would be that thing should continue to hold its own, producing the very heavy rain. And as Angela was talking about, the swath of wind, and I'm going to put on storm reports too, by the way. And let me take off the lightning to clear this up. So this is the sheer swath, and those are a lot of hail reports out of there. But we're going to get, that will be where we get some of the power outages on the increase, and we're still seeing that some pockets on our shear detector as well there within the severe thunderstorm warning polygon that continues for a good portion of Johnson County, Shelby County. That goes until 7:30. Looks like New Powell right now. I think the worst is probably over for you. Morristown, Shelbyville, if this thing holds together, probably start to take you into Rushville. So we'll see if we get an extension on the warnings here as we move forward. But a very impressive line. And let's just take the radar back and watch how this thing exploded. We knew we were going to get around today. It was just a matter of when, and you'll see them pop up there. And these were hail producers initially. As they got closer to the metro area, they turned into some wind makers as well. And so that's when we started to get some of those reports out of Hamilton County. So yeah, we'll keep you updated here. Love to have the rain for sure. You just don't like it to come with severe weather, and that's been the case the last couple of days here.
It has for sure, and we still have the line of storms, and we still have a couple of hours of daylight to work with. So Sean was mentioning all that energy that we still have left in the atmosphere, and we still have a couple of hours of daylight to get through. So we don't anticipate a significant weakening of this line until we get to probably 9 o'clock or so. Should start to see it pick up perhaps in forward speed a little bit. It is making its way now south and east, the line, the cluster of storms itself. We're going to get you caught up from west to east on the line of storms. Again, non-severe, but right over Mooresville. Mooresville was asking if they were going to get some rain. Yes, but it's coming with a lot of lightning. And it's coming down very heavy at times, reducing visibility and that potential for some damaging wind gusts and some small hail as well. It's into Mooresville and Monrovia now. Heads up Brooklyn, you're next, along with Adams, Martinsville. When we mentioned you Cloverdale last time around, and I do still think the worst is going to be east of you at this point, as that's where that cluster is kind of going as it makes its way off to the south and east, headed into Brooklyn, Adams, Martinsville, and the Paragon area. Over to just south of downtown Indianapolis, boy, we had some heavy rain. We still have the severe thunderstorm warning for northern Johnson, southern Marion until 7 o'clock. Southport, Greenwood getting hit hard at this point, and the Sugar Creek area. Needham, you're going to be next, along with Bargersville, New Whiteland, Franklin, and Shelbyville. This line of storms continues to kind of race off to the south and southeast, and then east of there we have the one warning for the area just to the east, including parts of Hancock and Shelby counties. That warning goes until 7:30 this evening. Heaviest is coming out of Greenfield right now, and Sean pointed out Rushville, so you're probably starting to see the skies darken in Rushville, definitely in Shelbyville, and with all of this moving south and east, wouldn't be surprised to get some additional warnings into the Shelbyville and Rushville areas in the next 20 minutes or so. We do have heavy rain over Spiceland, Knightstown, Carthage, and a new severe thunderstorm warning coming for our eastern viewing area. This is going to be this storm just south of Liberty, so Union County until 7:45, all because of this storm that has developed just south of Liberty near the West College Corner area. A good part of this storm is going to make its way into Oxford, which is just across the state line in the western sections of Ohio. And they put a warning out for the storm near Fountain City, but a good part of that, again, is in effect for western Ohio and doesn't include Richmond. And really the strongest part of the storm is right over the state line, just north of I-70 and just east of 27 in basically the eastern sections of the state. It does include the northeastern corner of Wayne County until 7:45. So those are a couple of new severe thunderstorm warnings that have come in just within the last couple of minutes. And just basically on cue. We mentioned Rushville. National Weather Service did put a warning on the storm that is over Morristown now, headed into Rushville. 7:45 for a good part of Rush County is your new severe thunderstorm warning. So that's a new warning for us, all because of the severe weather that is pushing south of Greenfield right now. It's over Morristown, and with the potential for 60-mile-per-hour winds and large hail, National Weather Service did extend the severe thunderstorm warning, added a new one to this line to include Rushville until 7:45. Heads up, Shelbyville, you've got a warning just to your north and west at this point. But while we're on this kind of close-up view, there's the original warning for southern Marion and northern Johnson. Severe threat ending for southern Marion County at this point. But while we're here, let's remove the warning and check velocity. So what we look for here, obviously in a tornadic event, we would be tracking the red and green close together, indicating rotation. What we look for in an event like this, the bright colors showing up, indicating those wind spikes. And we're seeing a little bit, so not surprising that they issued the severe thunderstorm warning for northern Rush County. You're seeing just a little bit of that brightening of the red, so indicating that wind picking up in advance of the line of storms. So damaging wind gusts, that potential exists for northern sections of Rush County at this point, including the Rushville area. We've also been monitoring that shear detector, so the wind spikes and picking up right where we saw that bright red showing up just northwest of Rushville, a little bit of a wind spike showing up on the shear detector. And really that's the best way we can show you where we think that damaging wind potential is. And at this point it is just south of Greenfield and just to the northwest of the Rushville area. Basically over Morristown, where we saw really the intensity on radar. That's where we have that wind, but it's going to move very quickly south and east. So heads up, Rushville, if you haven't brought the patio furniture in or there's something you'd like to move in, you've got maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes at the most before the winds start to pick up. And the winds are probably going to pick up in advance of that heavy rain that's going to be moving your way as well. We've also been monitoring the hail as well. And not quite as impressive on the hail at this point, but if we put the swath, so it looks back on radar how much hail we've had, and really you can see how intense it was across parts of Hendricks County, western Marion, into northern Johnson within the last half hour, 45 minutes or so. And you can see there is a little bit of hail showing up with that storm that's over Morristown now. So at least that potential still exists for severe hail and severe wind gusts. The new severe thunderstorm warning does include Rushville, and that's going to go until 7:45 this evening. So there's the line of storms. We anticipate it to move basically from where it is now, just south of Indianapolis, moving through Greenwood into Franklin, Columbus, Greensburg, Shelbyville, Rushville, Connorsville, Richmond in the next hour and a half or so before it clears the state and we start to see that severe potential dissipate. Bloomington, you might be curious, is this coming my way? I do think you get in on a little bit of rain at this point, but the severe, I believe, is going to stay just east of you based on the movement of this line of storms. And speaking of movement, let's go ahead and put it in motion just so you can see where it has been over the last half hour and where we expect it to go. So you can see really the intensification is the eastern part of the line of storms. So Bloomington, that's why I think it misses you in terms of the severe hail and the severe wind. Still may get a little rain and lightning out of this, but the severe storms are going to make that move south and east. So just hold on, Franklin, Greensburg, Connorsville, Liberty, Richmond, over the next hour or so, and we'll see how this holds together. But all indications are, based on latest analysis of the atmosphere, it does appear, Sean, this is going to hold together. Yeah, that's I think so. Again, north of this, I'm surprised they haven't shaved off some of the severe thunderstorm watch that technically goes for almost another 5 hours here. Did just get a recent severe weather report out of New Pal of some tree limbs broken off down there, and that's with that wind that's heading toward Rushville that Angela was talking about. You can see the very heavy rain. A lot of these are what you're seeing are hail reports on live Doppler 13 radar. Let me just take the watch box off real quick. Again, that based on what I'm seeing, I think if you're north of this line,
you're probably okay. You're probably done with severe weather. Along and south of it is going to be a different story here. Definitely picking up on some heavy rain. Take off these storm reports. And yeah, I'll show you our camera. We've got one there in Johnson County. This is a 70 in Newcastle, at the Newcastle exit. This is the one from Johnson County. This is 65 at the Main Street exit for Greenwood. Still in the thick of the rain and still technically under a severe thunderstorm warning. But as we look at our shear rate, and we've had at times it flared up a bit. I think the strongest wind right now is what you were talking about, what's heading toward Rushville. So I have noticed in the last few frames that the storm itself looks like it's becoming what we could call a little more outflow dominant. And you got to have balance. You got to have an updraft to keep the storm supported. It looks like it may be becoming a little more outflow dominant. And if that holds, then that would choke off the inflow into the storm. And then maybe we're just left with a period of some heavy rain, some lightning, and below severe limits in terms of wind. So that would be a good situation for everyone south here. To get to that, all that rain cooled air is going to have to come out of the storm. And so I think what's going on right now is, again, if I'm in Rushville, and certainly it's already moved through Morristown. So that looks to me, I think, our strongest wind. And that's over radars indicating over 60. Whether or not that all gets transferred to the surface, that is yet to be determined. But you have to treat it that way, and that's why they've issued that warning.
Okay, good heads up for those of you in Rush County. The severe thunderstorm warning continues until 7:45, and that's our latest warning on live Doppler 13 radar. And Sean was pointing out those velocities, and different from when we track tornadic thunderstorms. Basically, we're just looking for a brightening of the color, and you definitely saw that with the brighter red colors. That brighter red color just to the northwest of the Rushville area. So heads up, Rushville, it's coming in, and it's most likely coming in with some very strong winds. We are seeing some additional weakening with the storms to the west, so we still have some heavy rain. Still don't want you to be outside because we do have some lightning, so that's a danger and a threat at this point. East of Rockville, Greencastle, you've got another wave coming your way with what's developing just to your north and west. Cloverdale, we'll see what if this holds together north of Greencastle. You may get in on some much needed rain, but not be dealing with that severe threat. We do have an intense storm right now coming out of Plainfield, and this is right over Mooresville. And it's going to be this cluster here. Basically Mooresville, Monrovia, Brooklyn, Adams getting hit hard right now, and where it goes, Martinsville, you're going to be next with heavy rain, lots of lightning, that potential for some damaging wind gusts near 60, and the potential for some large hail. Although this part of the line is not warned for at this point, we still want you to take the storm seriously. Again, heavy rain coming down at a really fast pace that at times flooding intersections and just making travel difficult this evening. We are east of there and south of Indianapolis. Southport, you still have some rain, some lightning, Greenwood, New Whiteland, but by far the strongest is what's coming out of Morristown, has cleared Morristown, and what's moving into Rushville at this point. Most likely the winds are already starting to increase for you, Rushville, and the rest of Rush County as this storm tracks south and east, basically along and basically just to the south of Morristown now and headed into Rushville. So heads up, Rush County, strongest storm is moving in at this point. The severe thunderstorm warning goes until 7:45. From there, if that holds together, Richland, Columbia, so we'll be into the far southeastern sections of the state if that one holds together at this point. Shelbyville, you've got the rain. We've been keeping you updated on the storms that are just to your north. You've got the rain now, some of the stronger cells just to your northwest and moving in. These hold together, moving south along 74 into Adams and Greensburg eventually. Bargersville, you've got some storms moving in along with Franklin, Trafalgar, Morgantown, and Nineveh. These are just below severe limits to the west of Shelbyville. So from Shelbyville over to Martinsville, these at this point are just below severe limits, but we want you to take them seriously enough for the heavy rain and the lightning. And remember, we're under the severe thunderstorm watch technically until midnight. I don't anticipate it takes that long. I expect these storms to clear the state by about 9 o'clock or so as they make their way south and east toward the Greensburg and eventually into the Cincinnati area later this evening. We still have about an hour and a half left of daylight, still plenty of instability in the atmosphere to support the severe threat for us, at least over the next hour and a half, maybe two, in areas south and east of Indianapolis. So just heads up. Franklin, Columbus, Greensburg, Martinsville, these eventually are going to move south and east and in your direction. Connorsville, Richmond, a heads up for you. You're not dealing with severe storms yet, but that threat will continue for us over the next at least couple of hours. And I'm with Sean. I'm a little surprised Storm Prediction Center hasn't dropped areas north of this line from the severe thunderstorm watch, because at this point we don't have any additional development, and a lot of the atmosphere at this point has been used up by the storms that produced damaging wind gusts and large hail across a good part of central Indiana during that 4:30 to current time frame. So we're basically 3 hours we've been dealing with this cluster of storms, at times reaching severe limits. We've been monitoring the power outage map. Anything new coming in from that at this point? Oh, and I think I might have one more warning before I get back to you, Sean, and that's going to be some intensification with the storm west of Greenwood. So
you called that one.
Basically Mooresville, Brooklyn, Adams, tracking southeast, Bargersville, Trafalgar, Franklin. You're now under the severe thunderstorm warning just issued by the National Weather Service, and that's going to go until 8 o'clock. So some intensification with the cell just southwest of Indianapolis, right over Mooresville, Brooklyn, and Adams now. Bargersville, Franklin, Trafalgar, heads up. It's coming in, and the warning goes until 8 o'clock. And then we obviously still have the one for Rush County until 7:45.
How about we do this? We'll take a little break, give our crew, give them a break.
Okay.
Give our voices a little break here. See how these things behave. And Tony, if you're on the desk, if you want to just keep the radar, if you want maybe lapse your radar.
Sure, I can do
we'll
that.
Just, and do links 1. Leave that rolling. We'll mic it down, and just to give everyone a chance to kind of reset here, and we'll revisit. Let's maybe set for like 7:40ish. See what's happening, and if things are settling down, then maybe we can give the stream a little break. We'll reset. How's that sound?
Sounds good. So yes, I've got Tony, if you're on the desk and listening, I've got links 1 on a loop. So if you want to continue to follow along, and the severe storms, the warnings continue for the Franklin area, for the Rushville area, 7:45 for Rushville, the new warning for southern Johnson and northeast Morgan. That warning goes until 8 o'clock. Good evening. I'm meteorologist Angela Buchman. We do want to get you updated on the severe storms that continue to move through central Indiana. If you're Indianapolis north, you're in the clear. If you're south and east, we're still dealing with a threat of 60-mile-per-hour winds, some large hail. These storms extend from Martinsville to Franklin to Shelbyville and Rushville, all the way now into the eastern sections of the state. So I'm going to get you updated on west to east along this line. We've got numerous severe thunderstorm warnings, again with that potential for damaging winds and the large hail. So we'll start with some of the latest warnings for the areas that are south and east of Indianapolis. So I'm going to put, we'll stop the lapse, but that's what it's been doing over the last hour, and give you the big view of the line of storms that is now southeast of Indianapolis, pushing south of Richmond, and numerous severe thunderstorm warnings along this line. We will go west first, non-severe, but we've got a pop-up here that is developed just to the northwest of Rockville with some heavy rain and some lightning. Also not severe, southeast of Greencastle, Cloverdale, Martinsville, heavy rain, some lightning. This, as it pushes south, will impact Spencer, Ellettsville, and Bloomington within the next half hour or so. And then we go into the severe part of this line, and that's going to be in this complex that is near Franklin and Trafalgar now. Warnings set to expire at 8 p.m. for those of you in Trafalgar and Franklin, but additional warnings have been issued due to what's coming out of Franklin, and it's this area just to the northwest of Hope. So let's slide in this direction. This warning goes until 8:15, and it's for this cluster of storms that right now is just northwest of Hope, in between Hope and Franklin at this point. So Bartholomew County, you are included in this severe thunderstorm warning until 8:15. Let's check velocities while we're on this view. What we look for when we're not tracking tornadic thunderstorms, so red and green close together, we just look for the brighter spikes in the colors, and seeing a little bit of that just to the northwest of Hope. So the potential here for some larger wind gusts, and that hail potential will continue as well. And this is going to make its way into the Hope area in the next 10 to 15 minutes. That's how it looks in terms of velocities. Let's check the wind spikes. And yes, we're seeing a little bit in that area where we saw some of the brighter reds show up with the velocities. So this is just southwest of Shelbyville and just northwest of Hope. So if you live in the Hope area, you have just a few minutes to get into the safe part of your home as this storm really intensifies, basically right over you and just to the northwest of your location. So let's come back out, slightly bigger view. So that severe thunderstorm warning is going to include Bartholomew County until 8:15. We have additional warnings for the Greensburg area. So Decatur County, you're also under a severe thunderstorm warning until 8:15. And basically that storm is right over Greensburg right now, headed southeast into New Point and Oldenburg next, right over Blooming Grove. So we're now pushing south of Richmond into the southeastern sections of the state. This is going to include Franklin County until 8:45. So that's the latest warning for this cluster that's right over Connorsville right now, with heavy rain, potential for some strong winds, lots of lightning, and that hail potential as well. Liberty heads up, kind of sliding off to the east-southeast. Warnings continue for our southeastern viewing area until 8:45 this evening. We did have numerous trees down. We did have several reports of large hail. The news team kind of gathering some of the video and pictures that have come into us. So our team coverage will continue tonight on Channel 13 at 11 as we kind of compile everything from today's cluster of thunderstorms, and a fairly impressive line of storms, and it continues to be that. Non-severe, Martinsville over toward Franklin. Severe potential still northeast of Columbus in Hope, Greensburg as well into Franklin County, Connorsville over toward Liberty. So just heads up in this little area here, basically in between Hope, Greensburg, Connorsville, Liberty, and then into the Franklin County area. Severe potential exists for the next 15 minutes to on the long side 45 minutes for the southeastern sections of the state. We do expect this to completely clear our area by 9 o'clock, but we did want to give you a heads up that these severe storms continue with that potential for damaging winds and large hail. Franklin to Greensburg, Connorsville to Liberty, into the Brookville area, including Franklin County, for about the next 45 minutes or so. We have again seen trees down. We have seen some power outages with these storms, reports of some larger hail, and those will be threats for us for another half hour, 45 minutes until this complex completely clears the state. We think sometime between 9 and 10 o'clock. We will have the latest on the power outages, any damage coming in, some additional video and pictures that we continue to compile. Before I let you go, I do want to put on the storm reports because we've got lots of them, and a good part of those came from near the Indianapolis area as we saw this really intensify over southern Hamilton County, western Marion, eastern Hendricks. And we at one point up near the Westfield area had over 2,000 customers without power. AES added customers, unfortunately, without power as these storms rolled through, and now we're starting to see them intensify south and east. So just wanted to make sure you were weather aware. Anywhere from Franklin to Hope to Greensburg to Connorsville, Liberty, Brookville, this section will be dealing with the severe threat for about the next half hour, 45 minutes, and then we'll see this complex completely clear the state. We'll have coverage for you when you join us tonight at 11 on Channel 13.